Looking at the 2-0 teams now, we're going to go ahead and ask the question very early in the season. Are these teams contenders or pretenders? And not contenders for a Super Bowl. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, are they contenders to make the playoffs? That's all we're talking about here. Again, which of these 2-0 teams are legit and which are faking it? Starting off with the Buffalo Bills, I think this is going to be a pretty resounding contenders for both of us. I wasn't the biggest, believer in the Buffalo Bills coming into the season. Again, I'll admit when I'm wrong. I don't give a fuck. I'll admit when I'm wrong. But the Bills look pretty good. If they keep rocking out like this and Josh Allen keeps doing his thing, I think he has an MVP coming very, very quickly his way, and a very solidified playoff spot, especially with Tua now going to be out. He's placed on the IR, unfortunately, going to be talking to an outside neurologist about some of the concussion stuff, which we'll get into Tua a little bit later. But yeah, so Buffalo Bills, we're going to go ahead and I believe, Drew, we're both going to say they're contenders, correct?
I'm not even going to bother commenting on this. Are the Chiefs contenders? Yeah, the fuck they are. The Buffalo Bills contenders? Yes, sir, they are. Yep. I'm not even going to give any more words on this.
The
hater.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, where are you at with them?
Pretenders.
Big time. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't give a shit about them. You have Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and the carousel of quarterbacks that are going to end up going in and out. Are they probably going to be a 9-8 team and not be a losing team? Because that seems like what all Mike Tomlin cares about, probably. But are they going to be a playoff team? I don't think so. Not at this point. They're going to enjoy their spot at the top right now in that division, but it's not going to last for very long. Looking at the Houston Texans, we both agree that these guys are contenders. There's another one that's not even worth talking about, in my opinion, unless you have something else to say that I don't know about from Houston.
No, I mean, Houston, let's say 2 wide receivers tear their ACLs. They're still deep. Yeah. Running back goes down. They're still deep. Their defense. I was watching the game the other night, unfortunately, because it was a shitty game to watch, and I had completely lost all thought in my brain about a man named Will Anderson, who is a freaking phenom, because we're talking about Aiden so much recently. But Will Anderson, he's just a beast. That defense, and D'Amico is just a beast. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, you've put me in this position on this podcast the last couple of months to kind of do this Bills versus Texans thing, so I can't really enjoy the Texans as much. But if I had to take an AFC team, it would be the Bills. But if the Bills didn't exist, it's actually Josh Allen. It's not really. I don't give a shit about the Bills. Josh Allen's just from our area, our neck of the woods, so I always will root for him, especially because he did absolutely nothing in college, and he's just developed into an absolute pro. So. And, the early comparisons for Trey Lance was Josh Allen. Obviously, that's not going to work out. But I love Josh Allen. But the Texans, if you flash forward into the future and you told me they were in the AFC Championship game, that wouldn't really surprise me.
Yeah. I think these next couple of teams are the interesting ones. And it's a team, we're going to start out with one that you have been championing, and it's going to be
Chargers.
It's going to be the Chargers. So, for you, are the Chargers contenders or pretenders right now?
For me, they're contenders because I can't go back on what I've already said. And if you just mathematically look at the equation, the Texans, everyone else in their division is 0-2. Denver's 0-2. The Vegas Raiders are 1-1 somehow. The Bengals and the Ravens are 0-2.
Right.
And the Jets, Patriots, and Miami are all 1-1. The Miami's not going to be winning any games anytime soon. New England's obviously not going to be winning games anytime soon. And 7 teams get in. So mathematically at this point, I think 9 games will get you in.
Yeah.
So if they go 7-8 the rest of the way, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think they can. They got games in their own division. They got, a weaker schedule coming up. And and frankly, they really haven't played that well recently. And, they beat the Raiders and they beat the Panthers. That's got to be 2 bottom 5 teams in the league. But they got Pittsburgh this week. So, if they come in and the defense shuts down Justin Fields and their offense scores, was Russell Wilson in pads this week?
Oh, I didn't see. I did not
I got to
see.
Google that after we get off.
For me, so you said, obviously you've been a champion of the LA Chargers coming into the season, and you can't really go back on that now. While I've been on the other side of the fence, we've obviously had a couple of disagreements heading into the actual NFL season, and this has been one of them. And I just don't think they've done enough for me personally with the teams that they've beaten to really call them contenders. I think this whole thing can fall apart any minute, personally. So I'm still on the pretender side of it. If we revisit this in the next couple of weeks and we have another discussion about contenders and pretenders for the playoffs, it might flip around. But for right now, I'm going to stick with the Chargers being pretenders because I think this whole thing the wheels on the bus can just fall off.
Yeah, I'm just not willing to bet against a Harbaugh.
Yeah,
it's just tried and true. They go to the playoffs.
What about the team that beat you this weekend, and that is the Minnesota Vikings? What do you make of them and their 2-0 start? Are we pressing contender button on them yet, or are we still calling them pretenders at this moment?
I personally believe they're pretenders.
Okay.
It's just my opinion. They get a lucky play to Justin Jefferson.
Right.
And it's one of those things where you got Detroit in that division, you got Green Bay in that division, both of whom I think are going to bounce back. It just comes down to a number game. So New Orleans and Tampa Bay are going to make the playoffs. Dallas and Philadelphia is going to make the playoffs. The 49ers going to make the playoffs.
Right.
Now you're at 5 teams, and we got Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota that are all going for the last 2 spots. I just think that mathematically, and that's assuming the Seahawks, who are 2-0 right now, which I think we're going to talk about in a second here, don't continue to do what they're doing. So I'm in the same boat. This comes down to, do you believe in the Seahawks more or the Vikings more? That's what this basically comes down to mathematically on the where the playoffs are. And frankly,
we can't pick a third team for that.
I mean, I'm not even giving Atlanta any consideration here.
Oh yeah, no,
or Arizona.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe Kyler Murray's just legit this year. Then that makes it almost impossible for the Vikings to get in.
Right.
Unless they just don't ever lose. I mean, if they go, I think the league has to let them into the playoffs if they win every one of their games. So I think it's in the rules or something.
Yeah, I think it's part of the thing. Yeah, so honestly, I'm in the same boat as you when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm also on the pretender side of the ball. They have a rough schedule coming up too, so they're really going to be tested. Houston, Green Bay, the jury's out on New York, the Jets so far. I don't know about that one. Detroit, the Rams, the Colts. So once we kind of circle back around to this, maybe midway during the season, kind of post-October, we're going to definitely see where we're at on that one. Looking at the New Orleans Saints, I personally have them as contenders. You beat the brakes off of a team you're supposed to beat the brakes off of, and the Carolina Panthers. And then you beat the brakes off of a team that you're not supposed to beat the brakes off of, and the Dallas Cowboys. Derek Carr looks like a completely different person from last year to this year. Dink and dunk Derek Carr.
MVP.
He's looking fantastic, and he definitely deserves all the praise because, we definitely dogged on him on not looking good, looking like one of the bottom 15 quarterbacks in this league, and now he's completely turned it around, and he's looking pretty fantastic, obviously, with a new offensive coordinator in there and letting him throw the ball down the field. I mean, I made fun of some of the weapons that they had out there, and I said, "Oh, who's their number 2, Rashid Shaheed?" Well, guess what? Rashid Shaheed has now beaten some legit number 1 corners in this league on back-to-back weeks, and that is J.C. Horn beating him on a deep post. And guess what? He did again, beating. Actually, it was 2 safeties he ended up beating on a deep post in week 2. So, back-to-back weeks. And the thing is, with those throws with Derek Carr, they're on the money too. So they're legit throws. He's not over or under throwing them. So definitely got to say that the Saints are going to be, so far through 2 weeks, contenders for the playoffs in my book. What about for you?
It's crazy what a little pre-snap motion can do to your offense. They were dead last in the NFL last year because they were running some offense out of the 1980s, and they bring in a guy that runs a ton of motion and has,
a lot. I think he was 90 plus on the day.
So it is what it is. They look like they're really good so far. That division is up for grabs, and frankly, give me New Orleans and Tampa Bay in the playoffs with just Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield just going nutso. I'm in.
Right. And that's our other team, and that's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Are we both on the contender side with this? They were a playoff team, or they were a playoff team. Do we still believe in them?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a playoff team last year and you start out 2-0 with some good wins, not fluky wins like some of these teams have.
Yep.
How could you not? The defense is fine.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you 100%.
You see the Eagles, Devin White wasn't even active for the game yesterday.
Yeah, I did.
It's crazy how these players just fall off so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It makes some of these long-lasting players in the leagues, even we laugh a little bit at Von Miller's contract, but some of these guys that just operate at a high level for a really long time. Yep. That's why players like Frank Gore should make the Hall of Fame. 16 seasons, 16,000 yards. Let me just throw that in there.
And our last 2-0 team that we're going to talk about is the Seattle Seahawks. Personally, I have them as pretenders. I don't see these guys going in and catching enough wins to actually make the playoffs this year. The thing is, too, is they won against New England, but Geno Smith literally had to do everything in his power to be able to actually win that game in overtime. So it's a little rough looking, especially on paper, when everything Geno did was literally to just try to win that game. And he did.
Kenneth Walker didn't play, though.
It's true. Absolutely. But I just don't believe in it. Not right now.
Me neither.
Okay.
Geno's playing out of his mind, and they're 2-0. Congratulations. Is he going to continue to play out of his mind? I highly doubt it.
Especially when the two teams that they've faced is the Broncos, which they beat by 6, and then the Patriots, which they beat by 3.
They're up. They got nine net points.
Yeah, against those two teams, it's definitely really suspect. You have the Dolphins next, obviously, no Tua there, but then you have the Lions, and then you have an easy one against the Giants. I just don't see it, with a couple of these teams, and Seattle's definitely one of them.